Welcome to Electripreneur Secrets. I'm your host, Clay Newmeyer, with my partner, Joseph Lucanie, also known as Joseph the SalesBot Lucanie. We're here to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. And that's why we're here 5 days a week with real actionable advice to help you with just that. As we just gave special mention, and Austin, thank you. Appreciate you as well. Happy Friday. We're just seeing that on the live wall, guys. If you haven't seen us live, please join our Facebook group and catch us there too. But we just gave honorable mention to Justin Goldsboro, who managed to turn out a simple service call in his first week of business into a $6,400 plus club membership win. So congratulations again. And Justin just followed some of the advice that we have here and took action on that, as we were just discussing in the pre-show. Today, though, today's topics recorded for you live here for the podcast is going through what it takes to become a sales bot like Mr. Lucanie beside me here. Joseph, we got a ton to unpack with you today. Are you excited?
Nervous as all hell, but I'm excited as well. It's one of those things where I really, truly do feel like I need to tell my story, but it's always harder when you're talking about yourself, especially when there's a lot of heaviness to unpack. But, you know, Clay, let's buckle up. I want to make sure that I'm willing to bare my soul if it betters the rest of the community.
Yeah. In our last couple episodes, we've really been talking about the gap between bad, good, and great, and the actionability required. And I know we're going to touch on this huge, but it really became growth or death for you, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. It really was grow or die. There really wasn't another option. I was forced in a black or white situation and I chose the road I chose. Clearly I'm here, so it worked.
Right. And let's just talk about it for a moment. Like, where is here? Where are we now? And what makes this journey so noteworthy for our listeners?
So you're saying like the physical, like where are we right now? I mean, like, well, the first thing, I'm alive. So it means my story worked. I survived. But where are we currently right now? We are leading an industry that has not had any support. Right now, you and I are focusing on delivering an ability to help other electricians simplify their prices, master their sales, and deliver premium level service. We say those three things, but we mean them from the bottom of our hearts, and we both had to walk that path before. So for any electrician that's out there, I want you to understand this path isn't easy, but it is the most rewarding path you can possibly take because everyone wins when you do it for the right reason. The reason is the most important. Are you doing it because you're trying to make a buck, or are you doing it because you genuinely want to serve at the highest level? And that's why I feel so honored to be here today.
Absolutely. I love that. And digging a bit more into where this journey takes us, when you exited your business, what are some of the numbers you were seeing that would make this a journey worth following and advice worth taking?
Sure. So some of my personal accolades?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the claim to fame that I had was I was consistently doing over $1 million. I maxed out around 1.3 million out of my service van. That was consistent, year by year. And I was also very consistent in my closing ratio. I had dialed into a process that was allowing me to consistently close at an 80% ratio, whether it was an opportunity call or a service call, even on demand, even on warranty calls. You go into an opportunity where you think that you're going to end up losing and you find an opportunity to make it win. But lastly is my average service ticket was $2,800, meaning that it was, regardless of whatever call you sent me to, I was very likely to walk away with at least $2,800.
That's wild. That's really good. Do you have in mind a big week where you really knew, holy cow, this was massive?
May of 2019. I will say May of 2019 sticks out in particular because that particular, I don't remember why it stood out so much, but I remember on that Monday, I did a $35,000 day. On the Tuesday, I did a $70,000 day. Then Wednesday, I did a $14,000 day. Thursday, I did a $13,000 day. And then Friday, I did a $35,000 day. And only 2 of those were pre-scheduled calls. Literally, those 70,000 was a pre-scheduled call. Everything else was on a service call. And I really remember feeling like that was the win because it was something that allowed me to say, I did it when people say you couldn't. I didn't think I could do it. I always told myself I couldn't do it. But by following the process, suddenly I became a believer of, okay, the struggle stops now.
Absolutely. And I'm impressed as always, but I work with you every day. So as you can tell, there's no shell shock here for me. I've already seen the proof. I've seen this stuff work. Our clients are seeing it work. Even
Thank you.
our entrepreneur listeners are starting to see it work. So guys, that's what we're here to share with you today. The reasons why and how we got to this place, because it wasn't easy. Wasn't easy, right? So let's start closer to the beginning. As you said, you didn't always believe in yourself. In fact, that can't word was in your mind a lot, wasn't it?
The can't word practically was tattooed across the top of my forehead. I guess depends on what you want. Should we start from the beginning, I guess?
Yeah, give us the backstory, even from, you know what, as a kid, did you know you were going to be in electrical?
No. Realistically, what ended up happening was I always knew I was different. It didn't matter what it was, where I was, who I was talking to. I was different than that person. And not, in my opinion, it felt like not in a good way. I just knew that something wasn't right. And I don't mean to say that bad talking anyone. I'm just saying it felt it wasn't right. So I remember going to my father, and we have a very unusual relationship, but I approached him at 14 and I said, "Sir, what should I do with my life?" And he literally looked me from toe to head and said, "You're going to be an electrician." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And that literally was it. There was no background in electric. He wasn't electric. We were a family of white collar professionals. It was just, "You're going to be an electrician." "Yes, sir. Command confirmed. Let's go." That's what we're doing. And literally from there, I just said, I'm going to go to trade school. I'm going to start reading books. I'm going to start going involved. And I got into the trade at 14, as soon as I got my working papers.
Wow. Can I stop you there for a second? Say, guys, if you're listening to this live, please give us a 1 in the chat if you had a parent push you into this trade, and give us a 2 if you decided it on your own. Would love to hear it. Okay, so dad says I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do it because why? What's your reasoning? Were you actually that obedient as a kid, or did it?
No, I was not an obedient child, but I recognized structure. Structure was very comforting. It didn't matter what kind of structure, whether it was good structure or bad structure. If I knew that there was an order of operations to where things were meant to be, even back then, I naturally gravitated towards process and structure and discipline. I may not have always rebelled against it. Every teenager is going to, but I really loved process. I was the kind of kid that would take things apart. And you know how everyone will say that, but I was really taking stuff apart. I was taking apart appliances. There are probably things in my parents' house that are still just hanging on by just the thread of threads, but lasted that many years.
Wow. Okay. And we're going to get a little more into that process piece, I think, a little later in this story, and why that stuck with you so heavy. But do you remember wanting something outside of electrical for yourself?
It's going to sound sad, but I just wanted to be happy, in all honesty. There wasn't anything else that I really wanted. I didn't care what I was going to do. I just knew that I wasn't happy, and I wanted to chase anything that I thought was going to make me happy. And I was told, "You're going to be an electrician." And I said, "Okay, this is a path. There's a structure. I can follow it." So I went to trade school and went to college. I did the things. I worked summers. But the goal wasn't to make money. The goal wasn't to be wealthy. It wasn't for anything. It's just, I wanted to be happy. And I just never was.
So what were you struggling with at the time that was keeping you from being happy?
The thing is that I'm a different kind of person. And we'll get into a little bit more why later. But the main reason why it came out was I wasn't able to communicate with people. If anything, can I just jump into it now?
Oh yeah, go for it. Let's hear it, man. Because I think
So,
even what you just said, a lot of electricians relate to that. I don't know why this trade seems to attract us like the moth to a flame with communication and maybe social underlying confidence, a lack thereof.
So I'm gonna kind of fast forward some information, but then I'm gonna put it back as if if I knew then what I know now.
Sure, let's do that.
I'm an autistic person. That means I'm someone who has autism. And though I may be, as some people perceive, presenting as higher on the spectrum, that's all well and good, but it comes with a lot of difficulties. There are a lot of gifts, but a lot of difficulties, because if you know what you are, you can plan around it. You can perfect techniques, you can get processes, you can do therapies. There's things you can do to get right. But when you don't know, and all you know is I'm just so fucking different than everyone else, I can't talk to people, I couldn't make eye contact, I was awkward, I had no friends, I had no support. Like, that's where I was. And all I wanted to do was say, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to make people proud. I wanted to feel like I wasn't such a failure. And it was those things that I had in myself. It was my own limiting beliefs that I feel that were keeping me down from what I really could have achieved.
That must have been a struggle.
It was, man. It was one of those things where it led me down some very dark paths. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I look back at it as, if I didn't go down those paths, I wouldn't be as capable of helping people and prevent them from going down a similar path. I want to reach everyone. I want to reach the people who are like me. And I want you guys to know, if you're listening and you feel different, I want you to know that success doesn't have to look like what it looks like on social media. You can be happy and you can be successful as a neurodivergent. You can be happy and successful as whatever you are. It's really what you choose to. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you get to decide what you look like. And I didn't realize that years later, but I want to share that now.
Yeah, for sure. I would relate that to even some people only want to be a one-man shop. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Should you still serve at the highest level? I feel
Damn
so.
right.
And I think you guys would agree. But you don't have to chase revenue. And there's definitely a consistent thread of people that reach out who just want to double their numbers because it's sexy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what they want necessarily. That could be what the industry wants, what your peers want, what you see people doing. That can totally be the Joneses effect happening. And as we say, revenue is vanity and profits are sanity.
100%. I mean, there are so many people who are like, I need to sell 1 million. I need to sell 2 million. I mean, think about it. Like, can I just speak to our trade for all you electricians listening out there? We've been brainwashed into thinking all these high numbers should be the minimum. Like, I remember when I first started off, I was trained primarily by HVAC technicians. And all of that just taught me and reinforced in my mind, Joe, you're not shit. Because all these HVAC guys, they're selling $20,000, $30,000 a week, but the electrical department wasn't selling anything. We were selling 2, 3, 4,000. So I thought that was the minimum standard we need to chase. And when I eventually got there, I didn't realize how far it separated me from the rest of the pack. I just assumed I was chasing the minimum.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? It's crazy. Yeah, these other trades really blur the lines for us, and we get unrealistic expectations. So did you always feel that you were going to be a great electrician? I know you started to answer that a bit, but tell us a bit more about when you got into it and maybe the reality of how you were feeling as an electrician when you first started.
When I first started, I remember thinking to myself, okay, this could be an opportunity for you, because I was doing new construction at the time. And anyone who's done new construction, you know, you don't have to talk to other people really. I mean, you could be set on your own part of the job. You're doing this, you're doing that, and you really don't run into the general public all that often. So I remember thinking, this is it. I just got to be a really, really good electrician. I got to just be really good at install. I got to dial my install down. If I can do install right, I won't have to talk to people. And then I won't have to worry about it. I'll just get good at this, and I won't have to stress about being so socially inept. So my desire was to be a really, really, really good electrician. But I mean, anyone who's been in new construction, you have to recognize, unless you're just some grunt and that's never where you're going to aspire to grow from, you're eventually going to have to talk to somebody. You're going to have to learn how to lead a job. You're going to have to talk to your peers, or even more so, how are you even going to sell that job? You could be the best electrician in the world, but if you can't communicate to people, one, no one's going to want to work with you, but two, no one's going to hire you. So I realized really quickly, once I reached that skill level where I was able to do the work, I was like, I'm still in the same boat. I was like, now what? I have all the skills. Why can't I still talk to people?
Yeah.
So that's what something I was struggling with.
Huge takeaway there, guys. The last, I'm trying to think of who I follow online there, but it was a big business article I read, and they said, it's 10% business strategy, 90% strategic empathy.
That
It
would
took
make
me
a
a little
lot of
pause
sense.
to get that out because it's been a while since I read that, but I've seen that in every corner of every business, of every trade.
Mm.
If you don't have that communication piece, this whole thing is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of
I'm
the
telling
day,
you.
you need to relate to the very people you said,
Yeah,
coworkers, peers, clients.
it's crazy. It's one of those things where, and the worst part about it all was I didn't know any better. I didn't know. I thought there was something genuinely wrong with me. Like there was no therapy at the time. I was misdiagnosed. I slipped through the cracks. There was no further testing. It was it. I was high enough. I was high functioning enough that I was able to pass as neurotypical. And because you can pass as neurotypical, there weren't services that could support you. So I was just good enough to blend in, but I wasn't good enough to be fully functional in society. So it was like that sweet spot to where I couldn't get what I needed, but I also didn't know how to ask for more.
Yeah, that's got to be really tough.
It wasn't a fun place, man.
So you hit this wall, you realize, hey, I need to get better with people. And
Mm-hmm.
yet you're feeling disconnected from people and probably intimidated by that very realization.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a
It was
bit
very
more about that moment and how you begin to overcome this wall?
Yeah. So I learned that I knew that I was a smart person. Like it wasn't that I was unintelligent at all. It was, I was very good with books and I could learn things really quickly. So I said, I'm going to go to college. I went to SUNY Delhi. And for any alumni out there, hey, shout out to that. But I remember I went to Delhi and it was a trade school. It was primarily focused. It was one of the best electrical trade schools that I was aware of. And I said, you know what? Maybe it's that I don't know enough about electric. Like that's where my brain was at. I was like, maybe I just don't know about electric. It's not like I'm going to learn people. I didn't know enough about electric. So I said, you know what I'll do? I'll get 2 degrees. I'll get an electrical degree and I'll get a backup degree. So I actually have a degree in electric construction, but also in HVAC and refrigeration. So that actually turned out to be a major stepping stone for me, though. That whole degree. If I didn't have that degree, I wouldn't be here right now.
Okay. And how was that a stepping stone then?
Okay. So I want to give you a quick snapshot into what happened after college. So I got my degree, and 2 days after getting the degree, I graduated really high in my class. I actually, in trade school, I had the equivalent of a 99 average. It was like I was really good because one, when you don't have friends, you have plenty of time to study. So I was really, really good at that. So I actually got recruited at IBM, right? Like literally 2 days after graduation, they had said, hey, we want to bring you in for an interview. And I landed it and I got a job working for IBM right out of college. I was like, that's it. I made it. But it was the same problem. I had the skills and I had no social communication skills. But where the actual degree helped me was there was another company that I ended up working with that actually they did a commercial advertisement saying, right, this was right around 2000, 2009, right? Remember whenever like the market would crash and everything was bad and everyone was losing money. This company was like, we're hiring and we trying to get so many people to come in and we have so much work. It was a marketing ploy, but they were an HVAC company. And because I had an HVAC degree, I said, you know what? Let me apply. I can do electric. I can do HVAC. We'll do a multi-trade. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a test and I was awesome at tests. So I passed the test and they let me join. But if I didn't join that company, you're going to find as I continue my story, that company set me up to be where I am right now.
Okay. Okay. So you get the job at IBM. Do you fit in right away?
No, I hated every single day. There's actually a guy I was working with. And I remember he used to call me stupid every day. Every single day he would look at me and like, I remember, not to, if you don't mind me using the language, verbatim, he would say, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Every single day he would look at me and he would say that. And he was my foreman. And my work was great, but I just could not understand social cues. I was so socially inept and I didn't know the rules that I just could not fit in anywhere that wasn't physical work.
Wow.
So no, I was not happy. I was skilled. I was getting paid really well, but I wasn't happy. I still wasn't happy. The thing I was chasing was constantly eluding me.
Wow. Wow. And for those of you watching live, go ahead and type in WTF if you've ever had a journey person, a peer, anyone ever talk to you that way, made you feel a bit outcasted, because I know I sure did.
Yeah.
Definitely seems to happen in our working environments. A lot of
No.
pressure on people early on in the field. And I feel like the irony of it is the skills and the pressure that we feel go against the stuff we need later. And maybe that's why there's such a big barrier to success with so many electricians, because later it's not about being fast and keeping your mouth shut. It's about slowing down and understanding people and helping them at your best potential.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And the thing is that deep down, I felt like I was able to do more. I just felt like, have you ever been a kid where you're playing a board game and you just want to know the rules and you kind of have to figure it out as you're going? It was like, that was how my life was. I was just trying to figure it out. And I knew I could see all my friends playing the game and they were being successful and they were happy, but I was reading the rules in Chinese. It was like, I just didn't know. They wouldn't work. Nothing was translating. So I ended up getting to this HVAC company, and that's actually where I fell in love with generators. And if anyone who knows anything about me, I love generators so much because they were literally, if it wasn't for generators, I don't know where I would have been in business. But this company brought me in as an installer, and they said, "You're going to do AC tune-ups." So I was doing furnace and AC tune-ups. And then they said, "Well, if you can do HVAC, furnace, and tune-ups, we can also do generators. They're mechanical material. You can do that as well." So I got really, really good at doing generator tune-ups. But then they were noticing, they were like, "Well, you're not really selling anything on any of the calls you go to. You're just like, you're great at doing the work, but you're not converting anything." And I didn't know. I didn't know what was wrong. So the thing was, they kept shifting me from department to department. And like, I felt like they believed in me enough to say like they wanted to make it work, but not enough to really put me anywhere to keep me there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, you almost become a bit of a hard hat filler in a way. It's like, hey, we
Pretty
can put
much.
Joseph there, but we know he's not quite going to get the sales acceleration that we're desiring.
Yeah, I was a fulfillment person. You know what I mean? Like, I could do the job. I could do whatever you wanted me to do. Any install they needed doing, I could do the work, and I was good at doing the work. And I wanted to be professional. Like, I was always clean. My uniform was always on top, but like, I couldn't sell because I couldn't talk to people. It was unrelatable in every aspect of life.
And looking at you
So
now and knowing, where we started here today, talking about the accolades that you have achieved and come to this point, it seems fairly unlikely that we would have experienced this. So what
yeah.
happened to change this all?
So the thing that I was missing, other than personal understanding, was process. There was no framework that I really understood that was communicated to say, if you do this, you'll succeed. I didn't have that framework. And the thing is that this company, they didn't tell me at the time, but I had found out because my former business partner actually was my supervisor. He was my service manager. Turns out they were like, "We got to either cut him loose or we got to teach him how to sell." That really was where they were at. They were
They were
like,
going to lose you.
they were going to lose me. They were going to cut me off if I couldn't sell.
Wow.
I didn't know that till later. They didn't tell me. But the thing is that, so they invested in me to go to an HVAC sales trainer. And I dedicated my entire life to it. Like, every single video, every class, every single thing that I could do, I invested in. But there was something really important that they didn't know. And I feel like it's something that I want to share. It's a heavy topic, but I really feel like it needs to be shared. Can I kind of go a little dark for a second?
Yeah.
All right. So the thing was this: for 21 years, I thought I was the biggest POS that ever walked this earth. Nothing was working. I wasn't understanding anything. I was struggling with alcohol. I couldn't get myself in order. And I was realizing that life just wasn't really working out for me the way I thought it was. I had this 90s kid mentality of, if you work hard, you can achieve anything. But I was working my ass off, and all I was doing was just constantly finding wall after wall after wall. And I was facing it alone. And what they didn't know was that if I didn't succeed at this sales trainer's class, I was going to kill myself when I came home. And I had a plan. I had everything written out. I had everything step by step. I knew the day. It was literally going to be, I had a train schedule. I knew when the train was going to come. I knew which days it was going to come. I knew which time it was going to come. And I kept a log in my room at all times. And that was what was on the line for me. To them, if I didn't sell, I would just be replaced. To me, if I didn't sell, I'd be splattered.
I got goosebumps just from hearing it, man. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I'm obviously glad that that didn't happen. It really brings to light this statement, growth or death, which I've heard so many times. I've never heard someone embody it so truly and really be committed to that.
The thing is, and what I want you guys to learn, if there's anything that I can impart from my story that I think would be helpful, is if you were literally training as if failure would literally kill you, how hard would you be training? There was a period of time where I took all the sales knowledge I had and I put it onto an MP3 player. And this MP3 player became my Bible. So I was so proud, because as I started to sell a little bit more, I was able to buy a brand new car, which I never thought I was going to be able to do. So I made sure that it had a MP3 attachment. So for 2012, this was big, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I bought a converter for my van, and I bought the MP3 for my personal car. And I said, no matter what, non-negotiable, the moment I get into any vehicle, I will train. I will not have any downtime. It didn't matter whether I was smoking a cigarette in the van or anything. No matter what happened, there was a training episode going on. And when I wasn't training, I was role playing, and I was in front of the mirror and I would practice. So the thing that I want you guys to know is, yeah, it's growth or die, but think about it. How many travel hours do you account for in a year, in a month, in a week? How much are you traveling, and what are you doing with that time? I didn't have a choice, because I knew it was at the end of the line for me if I didn't succeed. So I was going to go down swinging. And I said, I'm going to make this happen, or, hey, I know what time the train's coming.
Yeah, and even that the number of hours in travel, I actually did the math on this at one point, and you could, in the average travel in the city near myself, Vancouver in Canada, they say the average person is traveling 2 to 3 hours a day. And by the time I factored in the number of listening hours, you could actually accomplish a bachelor's degree in 4 years, 4 to 5 years, just from travel.
Correct. And that's the thing. It's like, if you think about it, everyone needs a process, right? But I needed one in the worst way, because Clay, you're a social person, and it's something I really respect about you. I feel like I could take someone like you and put you into any room and you'd make a friend. And I love that about you. I never had that ability. It was something where if I didn't have a scripted approach to everything, I couldn't communicate. And at the time, I still couldn't figure out why. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 27. So this was like 27 years of, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I know that if I just say these things and do these things, I can sell. and therefore I won't get fired, and therefore I could stay alive.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I do want to correct you on one thing. Anyone listening from my high school days right now is cringing and maybe laughing out loud that you said that. They're like, what? Clayton Newmeyer? No, no. I've had the same social pressures, or felt, I shouldn't say had the same, but felt definitely the social pressures and the awkwardness. And in fact, if I get in a room full of people, I need a friend like Stat, because I need someone to use as an anchor. That's just the way it is. I don't know. It might seem the opposite. Obviously it does. We come and we put ourselves out here, but the same is true for you, right? So many people reflect on you right now, and when they hear this background, they can't actually believe it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm grateful, because have you ever heard the expression like 1% better every single day?
Absolutely.
That honestly, I'd say is the closest representation to where I was at. Because at 14 to 19, I was really good at install, and that's all I was capable of doing. I couldn't talk to people. 20 to 21, 22, 21 really was when I was like, okay, I could figure it out. So by 21, I had a process. So I'd been practicing it for about 2 years at the time. I had a process, I'd figured it out, but it was an HVAC process. It wasn't meant for electricians. So it still didn't quite line up. So because of that, I still felt just as inadequate when I was compared to my other team members. Like, if any of you guys electricians can feel like this, if you ever work for a multi-trade company and you see like, oh yeah, how was your numbers? Well, I sold 2 condensers last week. What'd you sell? Well, yeah, no, I actually got $45,000 this week. I got 65,000 this week. I got 75,000 this week. Joe, what'd you get? I sold 2 panels and I did a couple of small jobs. I did about $9,000 this week. And for me, I thought that was great. But at the same time, I thought that once again, Joe's just a POS, because everyone else was doing better, but I had no gauge of what a successful electrician should look like. I thought that was success. I thought I needed to hit 40, 50, 60,000 a week to be considered anything.
The reference. I love that you tied in that 1% better every day, because so often, I mean, we post testimonies even for people to see. We talked about Justin's earlier in that big win. And for some people, that's frustrating because then we fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. I just want to highlight that that really isn't what this is about. It's about you being better than yourself yesterday, you being better than yourself last week. And even for us, this is all relatively new. The first week, we didn't get all 5 of these episodes in. It was 3. And I was bitter about it. We came into Monday, we drug ourselves from the bumper of our own truck, so to speak, and come back, and we're making it all 5 this week, right?
Present, not perfect.
You get some things better every day. Yeah, James says comparison is the thief of joy, and I love that. Absolutely.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, it's so
I would
important.
say the one thing that I'd want to say is, with the 1% better every day, is I'm not trying to be better than anyone else. And realistically, I am competing about myself. I'm competing against myself, but I want to be the person to others that I so desperately needed when I was a kid. Like, that to me is now success. And that's what brings me into this industry that we're in right now. You know, I have the opportunity to be that person when previously I didn't even think I was going to be here.
Yeah.
So it really is an amazing experience.
Right, for sure. Okay, so you overcome this place, and somewhere in here, you're starting your own business, and quite young, right?
Yeah. So what ended up happening was my service manager and we ended up being in the same situation that so many other young business owners are, right? I was 22 years old, and I'd finally figured out how to sell generators, because that was primarily what the company did, right? I was just generator after generator after generator. I was like, I got this down. I could figure out this process. I know how this works. But at the time, we were doing all the maintenances. We were doing a lot of the installs. We were doing the admin. We were doing the sales. And I'm going to say this, I'm speaking to everyone else that ever started their own business. It was, well, if we're doing all this, why are we making someone else money? Why don't we do it for ourselves? And literally, it was that he got his master's license and said, you know what? I got a way out of this. Let's start our own company and we'll go out and we'll take over the industry. We'll do it. We can make this happen. And I was 22 years old. I was like, you know what? Sure, let's set up a partnership agreement and make it happen. And I went out and we were just like, we had no idea how to run a business, but we knew how to do generators. And that was the angle. That was our stick.
Awesome. I love that. I do. Okay. So at this point though, you're able to make a few more sales and you guys actually ended up dividing and conquering a bit that way. Is that right?
Yeah. So for years and years and years, the company would grow in a different way. Like I'd say if you took our first year business model, it was just two guys in a van doing everything. Like I would sell all the jobs, he would manage the company finances, we would both do the installation. Eventually, as we were growing, because I started dialing it in, right? You can't spend enough time with your back against the wall and it's do or die.
Yeah.
So I was getting better with this process. I would listen to any trainer. Like I would go, I remember, I think Jack Canfield's 7 Secrets of Superstar Techs. I remember I had it in CD and it would always go into my van. And Zig Ziglar. I mean, I still have a Zig Ziglar book that's highlighted from way back then. Any book I could get, I was reading. Every chance I could get, I was studying. My process was relentless because at the time, and I keep saying this, I hated myself. I mean, like the word loathing doesn't cover it because no matter how good I achieved, I was doing it just trying to survive. Because at the time, even running my own company, I still wasn't able to talk to people. I could sell to them with my process, but then if we needed to make small talk, I would flounder and I would lose it. So I had this mentality of saying, well, if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then every day it would be like, well, I'm not going to kill myself today. I'll do it tomorrow. If not today, tomorrow. If not today. And it just kept doing that for years and years and years until eventually in our business, we started seeing more success. And I'm really proud of the effort that we did. Like, I really am proud. We grew a lot. We started developing a name. We started winning awards. We had enough money now to buy a shop and now had multiple vans. But right around 27 was really when I feel like my life turned around. Like, I would say, like, my happiest day, I usually would say that people would ever be like, meeting my wife, Melanie, is an utter angel, married way out of my league, right? But like, that isn't even my happiest day. My happiest day was 27 because I hit my rock bottom. I was still an alcoholic and I was really, really struggling with my drinking, not because I was partying. It was that I was in a state of such emotional despair and I felt like I couldn't ever find my way out of it, that drinking was the only thing I could use to medicate. I didn't know any better. I really didn't. But I remember something happened at 27 where I was like, that's it. I was like, I got to go to therapy. I was like, I got to get this fixed. Something's not right. I'm going to die like this. And not in the way I want. I don't want to go from liver cirrhosis. I got to get this fixed. So I ended up going to therapy. And within 2 sessions, my therapist is like, you're autistic. Like, you're really autistic. This is what it is. And some people might look at it like, oh, but for me, oh my God, like even just thinking about it makes me want to cry because it was so relieving. I finally was like, this is it. This is it. The social awkwardness. I mean, like all the other things, like I have an insane pain tolerance. You could hit me in the face with a bat and I probably wouldn't recognize it, but you play a loud siren and I'm going to cripple. Like, it's just, there's so many things that make me me that I didn't realize were so directly tied to my neurological wiring. And now that I understood what it was, now I can actually actively work on improving and developing myself to be something better. Can you tell how like just talking about this raised my voice and my demeanor?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's a different energy. So
It
we can
really
see
is.
that at 27. That's remarkable. And did that also help with the drinking then?
I stopped drinking. That was the thing. Like it was one of those things where like I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped pretty much doing almost anything. Like I drank, don't get me wrong, but the difference was it wasn't to medicate. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between going to a party and having a few drinks compared to I can't feel this way anymore and I'll do anything to numb how I'm feeling because the sound of the firehouse next door is making my ears want to bleed.
Yeah.
You know, like I couldn't quite figure it out. So I would say, I mean, you know, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, but I haven't been drunk. I can't even tell you when. I don't know the last time I've been drunk. So
Wow. Good
it's
for you.
really going,
Congratulations.
thank you. From going from like being drunk all the time to like, I literally cannot tell you the last time I really ever, yeah, I don't even know last time I had anything more than a drink.
So the 20s were a big decade. How did this new understanding of yourself free you, and how did that impact you at work?
That is really where the shift happened. Because at that time, that's when I started getting to like the high 80 close ratios and the higher tickets, because you can have a process. And Bob Marley said it really well. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. I had gotten good enough at my scripted process that I could dial into it. And provided they didn't want enough small talk, I could portray myself as a fully functioning adult who could get across the point and was very professional. Now that I was invested in therapy and I was learning coping skills and I was not drinking anymore and I was on the right kind of medications, like everything was working. Now I felt comfortable enough with myself to start opening up with people. I was able to talk to people. I was able to relate with them a little bit more. Like I could recognize certain triggers for me. I could recognize certain things and say like, okay, this situation is going to set me off. So therefore I'm going to be prepared for it.
For
So
sure.
things like that.
You mentioned one day actually even training your process, your script, while listening to dogs barking in your headphones.
Yeah, actually you remembered that. And so the thing is I mentioned earlier, I really struggle with sounds. It's something that happens to a lot of neurodivergents. Bright lights, random sounds, babies crying, dogs barking. So I recognized, okay, Joe, you're autistic. So the sound of dogs barking isn't that you hate dogs. You just hate the sound that it makes and it's causing you to feel. So I realized when I was tracking my averages, I wasn't able to close when there was dogs barking. When babies were crying, I couldn't do it. So what I started doing was I was practicing in front of the mirror, and then I would play on the radio or I'd go to YouTube at the time and I would play dogs barking. And I would really have to push past it, but it built my tolerances up so that eventually when I would go to these homes, I was prepared. It would be like, okay, I'm prepared for this. Let's go. The dog's gonna bark. You know what to do. You can focus on this, focus on that, control your speech, lower your ears. Like I learned skills to get past it. And believe it or not, that actual skill is what I feel made me a more functional father. Can I
Wow.
touch on that if you don't mind?
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
So obviously I really will stand by the fact that I married out of my league. My wife is an angel. She's the best person I ever known. But the closest second I would say is my daughters. I love my two girls so goddamn much. But I didn't realize at first I thought I didn't like kids. For my whole life, I didn't think I liked kids. I thought I hated kids. Turns out I hate the sounds of babies crying. I didn't know that about me. So the same techniques that I practiced against listening to dogs barking while I was working in therapy, we would have babies crying in the background and I would learn how to push past it. I would learn that earmuffs would work. I would learn that AirPods would work. So I learned coping techniques to be a better parent. And when I became a parent, then I could also be relatable to other parents. It was something that never connected with me. So now I was not only able to sell with small talk and I could sell with a process, but now I could connect with not only married people, but people who have kids. And I could start doing things in my process like, you know what? I'm going to knock on the door at night. I'm never going to ring the bell because I remember when I get upset if people wake up the baby after I put her to sleep. So I started incorporating little things into this process and tweaking it and making my own to make it more relatable to people. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I relating right here, hand up. I've never been more vulnerable than having my own baby girl crying in the middle of the night. Right. And who doesn't know that is a father? I used to go lay on the floor. I would get in trouble. The missus would tell me, come back to bed, stop coddling the kid. She needs space too. I couldn't handle it as a dad. Like I was the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life. So I definitely relate. And at the same time, still the infant stage is hard, isn't it?
I actually have a 1-year-old as it stands. So I'm still not out of it for now. But you know what? The coping skills keep me alive.
Awesome,
And
man.
so I can't complain. I'm better now. I'm a more functional person today than I was yesterday. And I will be a more functional person tomorrow than I am today.
Can I highlight the superpower that I'm starting to see? There's actually two things you said already, three really in the last little bit that is like where all the money is in this. Yes, there's adversity. That's what causes us to push. It became growth or death for you. And in a way that maybe some people can relate to, and maybe for some that's a little ways off what they've ever felt. I mean, it's a touching story. It's a huge battle that you face. So I want to honor that. But as we zoom out, I'm also seeing someone that just wouldn't give up and had to find a way to be freed from that. And that's kind of what adversity is. And I think that we're surrounded by people that think we shouldn't have problems.
Yeah.
But it's those problems and challenges that keep pushing us, that keep affirming our decision to grow.
Yeah.
It's really important.
And you know, in addition to that, has anyone out there that's listening ever felt littler after watching someone's social media? Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember when Facebook first came out, I didn't know I was autistic at the time, but like Facebook was like, look how happy I am. Look how successful I am. Look at how many friends I have. Look at all the money I'm making. And I'm like, damn, I can't even be happy doing the things I like most. And this guy is living the life. So yeah, it's hard, but it was one of those things where I don't know why I didn't give up on myself. I honestly wish I could give you a reason. I really wish I could, but it was just one of those things where I just felt that there was more. I felt that there was more that I could reach. I didn't think that I couldn't get there. I just felt that I didn't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Like everyone else was happy. So there's got to be something they're doing. I believed in that vision enough to say that I didn't want to give up on that vision.
Yeah.
I wanted just to be happy.
I also heard that, and something my mentor used to say, Jim Rohn, like, great, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around most. And we touched on this briefly the other day. When you start filling your ears with these motivational speakers, but also really people that are profound in sales and understanding other people, relationships, communication, when you start filling your head with that stuff so much as you did, you start becoming it. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around most, even if they're just in your ear. And that's why so commonly I'll say, hey, my mentor, XYZ, and they're like, oh, you know Chris Voss? I don't need to, you know what? Yes, Chris Voss doesn't know me. That doesn't matter. He puts this information out for me to be a mentee of that. You know what I mean? So I love using that term, and I love referencing that exact, really it's a solution. If you'll be with that stuff, you'll become that stuff.
I had something that ties right in with that is right around where we're at in the story. Is I didn't have many friends. I had very, very few friends at the time prior to being diagnosed. But once I went to therapy, there was actually a period of time where I did what's known as a mass exodus. I cut off everyone. I mean, when I mean everyone, I mean family, friends, everyone. Because the thing was, is I realized what I'm surrounded with right now hasn't worked. And if I keep being surrounded with what doesn't work, I'll never be in the position to find what will work. And it was hard. It was really, really, anyone who's ever separated from family before, it's never easy. And it's still something that I battle with. But the fact is that now I'm in a place that I can truly say I'm me. And I'm me because I want to be this way, and not I'm me because I have to be this way. And I don't think I could have gotten that if I had kept surrounded by the people I was surrounded by.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to relate that back to electrical language. As an industrial guy, I love ladder logic, PLCs, inputs and outputs. That's how I see this thing. And relating that to the supercomputer that's in your head is something they call the reticular activating system. You've been programming that your entire life. All these inputs are adding up, and they continue to add up, and they will continue to add up for as long as you expose yourself to them. It's one of the biggest things we deal with on the sales level is that first dark cloud, as we call it, the self objection cloud, the red team, the stuff that has been adding up that isn't consistent with what is available of you. And just deep dive in this for a little second, right? Because it's so important. So if you had a brother as a kid that told you, you're ugly, man, you're ugly, you're ugly. Or I've heard this in a book, Psycho-Cybernetics, a guy being told, you got a big nose. You got a big nose. Go and see a surgeon later in life to get a nose reduction. And he's like, it was stopping him in sales. Literally, the guy was like, no one will buy from me because my nose is so big. I need to get a nose job. And the surgeon's like, that's not real. People will like you, big nose or not.
I mean, look at me. I was going to say, I got that Roman nose.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm doing it too.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
doing it too. So just to tie that together, if you want to change the outputs, you have to change the inputs.
100%.
And if you won't put those inputs there, who will? Like that's like that serenity conversation, right? The things I can control, the inputs, you have to control those to get this output right. All right. So knowing this diagnosis now, collecting where we are in your story, you begin to train on this. You begin to understand better. You're listening to the noises. I love that you keep working on your weaknesses. You are on, and that's maybe the 30,000 foot view again, but you're on this trajectory of, I know what I want. I know what's in the way of that. And I need to fix or grow or focus on those things to achieve the goal on the other side.
Correct.
How important. And you were doing things like you said, looking in the mirror. Because language, or what's communicated is more than just the words out of your mouth.
Can I touch on that for a moment?
Yeah, please.
So we started doing, in therapy, we started doing social training, right? And saying like, okay, how much eye contact is too much eye contact? Where are your hands? Where should they be? Should you fizz it? When you cross your arms, what's communicated? When your arms behind you, what's communicated? Like I started learning how to hold myself. And I started incorporating those into the process and starting to learn, okay, all these little things that I didn't know will now make me better at selling. And therefore, but not because it's going to make me a better salesperson, but because it'll make me more of a relatable person. So all these things I started focusing on were just small little steps to other people. Like to a neurotypical person, I'm pretty sure they don't have to be trained on how long to maintain eye contact. But even you and I have mentioned, hey, Joe, sometimes it looks like you're zoning out because I'm just staring without blinking. It's just, sometimes that's just me. I just forget to blink. It happens.
Love that.
What can you do? Right?
Yeah. Embrace it. Man, I honestly, I'm just going to insert a moment of gratitude. I don't think there's anyone else on this planet that's anything remotely close to who you are and what you've done. There's no other person that could lead this mission of mastering sales to the degree that you did. Because guys, the stuff you're hearing it wasn't just like, oh, I noticed this. Most people notice things. At some point, you might even address it. You might even say it out loud. For Joseph, it was a must to build a framework that addressed it. And then to rehearse that framework and make sure it addressed that problem. That's not an 80-20. We're talking 95.5 or maybe 99.1 here. You are the 1%, brother.
Thank you. I'm honored that you'd say that. And, the thing is that we'll never think as highly of ourselves as others might think about us. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
taking it with a grain of salt. But once again, it was grow or die. That mentality never really changed. I I struggled with suicide attempts my whole life. Even beyond that point and everything, I had my struggles. But what was securing it was, okay, I now run a business. And if I can just know that I can sell this much, I'll be good. The thing is I still was under the metrics of HVAC companies. So I thought a $20,000 week was the minimum. So what I started to do is I said, okay, every day I need to sell at least $5,000 a day so that I could have a $20,000 or $25,000 week. Because I thought from all the trainers that I had worked with, that's the minimum or the average. So the thing is I started rapidly growing my company. We started off at like $90,000 in sales the first year, and we just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And in the course of 7 years, we were at 1.3.
That's
But it
amazing.
was because we kept growing it and not giving up on it. And it's the small appreciation of the details that means so much.
I got to ask because a lot of people then, especially when they see a script or see a process, they've already got what their accumulation of experience is. They've
Mm,
already got some fears around being seen as salesy. That's that first
mm,
dark cloud. Again, the
yeah.
self-rejection. Will you just tell me quick, were your customers any less happy when they were paying more?
No, no. No. So let me explain a very important thing about sales that I don't think is nearly addressed enough. Sales is not something you do to someone. Sales is something you do for someone. I knew our work was top notch. We were studying, we were both Generac and Kohler dealers. We were Tesla dealers. We had the best financing. Our workmanship was on top. We had a lifetime guarantee on everything we touched. I knew, hands down, you put me against any other electrical company at the time, I felt strong and confident. But in order to deliver that level of service, we needed to charge more. It by default, you had to do it. You cannot deliver high levels of service if you don't have the means of funding it. So the thing is I stopped selling high ticket items just to have revenue. What I was doing was I was creating options and giving the customer the choice of which one they wanted to do. We would always offer 6-level choices: premium, mid-range, and economy. Regardless of what it was, you would always have a choice. And for every choice, I could say, I did this for you because. I would tie it into the emotional reason why someone would want to have it and how working with someone like me would better their lives and their homes and their families. So, yeah, they might have called me for a trip GFI and ended up getting a whole new service. But you know what? They were grateful because they didn't know they had a rot hole in their meter outside. They didn't know that their ceiling fan that was constantly dusty in their daughter's room actually was blowing fiberglass all over the place. That's actually all the dust that usually you're seeing. Once again, thank you for learning from HVAC companies. People didn't know, hey, you know what? I've got a pool, but you know what? I have no lights outside, so I've got to go swim in the dark. When I was offering things for emotional reasons that would benefit people, they stopped being upset at the price and started thanking me for thinking of them. So really, at the end of the day, all we are is just a conduit to solve people's problems. And they may not be problems they knew they had, but as long as you're an honest person and you're telling them the truth, then you really are solving the problem that they need to solve.
Something you're doing with them, helping them buy.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that there's a huge block in there for most. I think that's where we see it the most is we spend so much time with not enough muscle memory in the background to operate for us, or not enough of a dialed in process, that we spend so much time and energy in front of the customer thinking, I don't want to mess up this price. I got to get this price right. I don't want to miss anything. And there's a lot of don'ts and can'ts and fear of losing the sale ahead of ever proposing an honest, thoughtful, and thorough solution. And that's
Yeah.
the difference that I've seen in working beside you that I think is so profound in this process that we teach,
Mhm.
is that all these solutions, we hear it from guys who've been in business for a decade or more. I just never thought of that. You've
So
clearly taken the time to be in the buyer's shoes and think of the things that will actually benefit the quality of life going forward.
can I explain why?
Please do.
So once again, being in the mentality of being surrounded by HVAC and plumbing technicians, they have a massive advantage over the typical electrician because there's parts that constantly break and there's also continuous services that need to be offered. So like you think, okay, I'm going to have a service call on an outside condenser. You know that you could offer a hard start kit, you can offer a dual stage capacitor, you could offer the surge protector, the enhanced disconnect, the rewiring, the fin grades. Like there's so many things just in that you could offer. But now you take an electrician and you put him in front of a GFI on a countertop. What does he do? You can't offer more things. People don't need things, but people care about being happy. And that was something that I knew I was chasing my whole life. So I said to myself, okay, how can I make them happier by me being here? Okay, you've got a bad GFI. Well, right now that GFI controls all your countertops. So could I make you happier if I localize each one of them so that when this one trips, it doesn't take out the fridge and now you don't worry about, losing food if you're gone? Or you don't have to work. Right now, you've got lighting in your room. Great. I see you have a ceiling fan with a remote by your bed. Wouldn't it be better if I actually cut a 3-way switch by the side of the bed? That way you can walk into the room and have the light on, walk into bed and be able to turn the light off. So by being creative and saying, how can I make you happier by me being here? Solutions will come up. They just will. If you truly care about people, you have to put yourself in their shoes. And now that I had the skills, like I already was a good electrician. I was a bad person. Not a bad person. I was a non-functional person. I did
Yeah.
all the pieces weren't correct. Once the pieces clicked and I could understand and relate with people, I could connect good electric work to them being happy. And that I feel was the difference.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that's the difference. That's what people keep saying they're seeing in this program that you don't see anywhere else. That's the specificity, the specialized training with that thorough thought through every process from the front door to the referral, review, and repeat transaction.
Mhm.
And I'm astounded by it. So I appreciate you. I wanted to extend that gratitude, of course. But now at this point, you exit your business, and I think that's a different story. We don't need to go too deep, and we're already at the hour.
Mhm.
But can you tell us a little bit about the last few years in sense of
Sure.
exit, what happened next, and where you believe you left this process and what you believe it's actually capable of beyond
Yeah.
what you took it to?
So I was realizing that I was doing around 1.3 million, even though we were running a company and doing service calls. Like at the time, I really wasn't a fully selling tech. You know what I mean? Like I would go to a call and I would either sell it and then offer to do it, or if it was a big job, I would sell it and there'd be someone who'd follow me to do it. But eventually the goal was to have me strictly sell and just have nothing but leads and not have to turn any tools. I truly believe that 1.3 is the floor. And my goal is to make every single person who I train better than me. I want that to be the benchmark. I really think that this should at least be a $2 million system. Because if I could have done 1.3 while running a business, while also having a young kids, while also having to physically do the work, what would have happened if I didn't have to run a business? Like if I was an employee and I was just fed leads 5 times a day, 5 days a week, what could have happened?
Yeah. And
Like
can I
the
jump in
sky's
there
the
and
limit.
insert something quick?
For sure, go for it.
We have a 5 pillars document, guys. And if you're watching this live, if you're on the Facebook group, you can just actually type in 5 pillars
Mhm.
and we'll send this to you. I should type it quick. 5 pillars. A document explaining how Joseph was doing this really with roughly 14 qualified leads on average per week. This,
Yeah,
like, I
wasn't
think
a
a lot of
ton.
people hear the millions and they go, oh, yeah, well, you must have been serving so many people. Not with an average ticket that high, not with an 80% close ratio, not with repeat transactions, reviews, referral. All this stuff adds up to
Mhm.
qualifying those leads at the front door and building that thing solid as a rock. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. So I mean, that was that. And I know we're trying to like fast track it to where we are now. And the goal always was happy, right? Once I knew that I knew who and what I was, I knew that the position in my life was a paradigm. It was a paradigm shift at this point. And I realized that I really love training people on how to sell. Like I've developed a process and I had perfected it over so long that I wanted to start sharing it with people. So I literally was volunteering myself on the weekends. Like I wasn't even getting paid for it. Other electricians would be like, hey, can you work with me? And to be all over the state and all over the country. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you're not a competitor. Let's talk. And then there got to a point when I was like, you know what? I want to sell my business. I was like, I don't want to, I want to go into training. I want to do that. And I actually contacted my mentor at the time, the one who started me off. And within 15 minutes, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about selling my company. Do you know anyone that would want to pursue in like a training career? And he's like, give me 15 minutes. I'll call you right back. And he called me and he's like, yeah, you're going to come work for me. I was like, what? He's like, you're not going to put your resume out. You're going to come work for me. This is what we're doing. And I was like, wow. Like I got to work with my hero. I was like, this is great. So I ended up joining that team and I feel like I learned a lot. I was able to understand my process a little more. I learned more about coaching. I learned more about development, and I'm grateful for the time that I spent there. But I realized just like everywhere else, and it was the same problem from when I first freaking started. And I'm not trying to badmouth anyone. I'm just trying to say that I started and I was an electrician being compared to HVAC. And I was teaching as an electrician surrounded by HVAC techs. It didn't quite click. And I kept asking, like, where are the electricians? They've got to be out there. People have got to need help. I can't have been the only one. Is everyone having this figured out? And it was just me with my thumb up my butt. Is that it? So I left. And I left, honestly, like Clay, you were the one that actually wanted to make me do this because he literally made a post saying, why should I hire you? And I didn't think he was being serious or not. It was just a post. But he manifested this because I was following your content for months. And I'm like, damn, I would love to work with Clay. I would love to work with Clay. I would love to work with Clay. And one day when you put out a post saying, why should I hire you? I was like, you know, I'm just going to put it out there. Clay, are you being serious about this? And what did you say?
Let's get on a call. I want to point something out and full circle back. Earlier, we talked about, hey, if you want to control the outputs, control the inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at that the other way. Flip the script, guys. You have controlled outputs and you have an audience that are having inputs. That's marketing 101. We can't simplify it more than that, right? So in our Apex Attraction model workshop and course content, we talk about this very thing and how attracting A players for you on Indeed and Monster and ZipRecruiter and all these sites where you just put this long-winded ad up with all the things you're looking for in a human, hoping that some number of a person applies. While that may get you some resumes, it certainly isn't going to catch everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could have more than one fishing line in the river to catch a fish, I certainly would. Would you?
Mm-hmm. As a
Right?
fisher, who can say, yeah, I love to fish. So why not, right?
Right? So the same has to be asked in your business. So I just wanted to touch on that with you guys. That's the Apex Attraction method, but it worked. It's right here. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
When you constantly put out that good energy, put out your vision, put out what you hope to reap, you do. You get it. Sow the seeds, the plants you want the fruit from.
And I really feel, if I can speak almost in a sense of providence, I feel as if my life has led me down this river, whether I realized it or not, to shape me into this role. I was an electrician who knew that I couldn't sell. I developed such an intense self-loathing that I always thought that I was wrong. And because I always thought I was wrong, I was willing to accept help from others. I assumed that if I was doing something, I probably was doing it wrong. So any advice someone gave me, I took to heart. That's why I was able to adopt these processes. Then over a decade, I took a process and I made it my own, and I shifted it and I worked it and I made it something that worked for electricians. And then I end up working for my mentor and then realizing we're not doing enough for electricians, and finding the kind of person like you are, Clay, where we can really and truly actually impact our industry. We can put real empowerment into the people who are giving power to all the homes. Why is it that we're the least to get power when we're the first person to run it? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
So it's one of those things that I am just so utterly grateful to be in the position that we are, because it feels full circle.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have help. I didn't have support. But now, through these efforts, there may be some 14-year-old kid right now who doesn't know what he's doing. And maybe he can listen to a podcast and say, you know what? Maybe there's some little autistic kid out there that's going to see this and be inspired to not want to put his head on that train track. I don't know. I just hope that my message helps someone. If it helps anyone, it's worth it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. We're very clear on our mission, vision, and values. And that's why everyone on our team is inspired. We hear from it from our team members daily.
Mm-hmm.
Literally inspired. And you do want to accomplish the same in your business, not just for your team, but also your clients, right? Be the kind of person they would want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Gone are the days like our fathers, grandfathers, where you would get work and then hire people to get the work done. Nowadays, it's about mastering getting work, mastering the attraction of people. And when people come on board that are worth retention, you turn on the tap and get more work. And you do that with a fire under your ass to keep your team motivated, to keep your business growing. That's how the world's flipped. But just the same, I mentioned grandfathers. I had a grandpa that worked on a dam, and I had a grandfather that was in the war, World War II. The guy who worked on the dam, they literally, when they bid that project, there was casualties in the estimate. We estimate losing 13 people through the course of this 10-year project. Wow. That old dog won't hunt anymore, right? So the game has changed. The rules have changed. And again, I just can't commend you enough for how well you've put these rules, our rules, together to help people adopt it and make the most of it. And what I can tell you guys 100%, and I talked to a client about this last night, last moment of our call, such a powerful takeaway. The very things we've talked about today, the disassociation with society, the disassociation with clients, and that feeling of personal hurt and disdain and negative, all can come from and to your techs from not having a process in place. Because if they don't have a process to follow, then that means they're going out and talking to your customers all with heart, their knowledge and experience. And that's a problem when you get rejected.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got a great story, but not everyone can tell a great story. We have to give them the tools to tell it so that if it doesn't get taken well, like your sales process, it's the process's diagnostics that matter here. It's the fault within the process, not the person, is a better way to say that.
Can I add something as well?
Please do.
You mentioned diagnostic. Literally, you know how everyone says Joe is the sales bot? That's where that's the whole thing that we talked about, the birth of the sales bot.
Yeah.
I've always associated myself more as a cybernetic or a cyborg than I have as an actual human being. And I've been called a robot ever since I was a kid because I, just a little awkward and robotic in my movements and whatnot. But I used it for our benefit because I designed a self-diagnostic evaluation after the call. And as you mentioned the word diagnostic, and I figured that's something that would be helpful because it doesn't sound like a person does a self-diagnostic on themselves. It sounds like a machine does it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. There are things that you can do when you say, this is a process, the process works well, I'm not going to manipulate it, and I'm not going to allow my personal views influence it. I will not blame the customer. I will not blame the economy. I will not blame the weather. I will blame me. And I will be able to point where I let the process down in these steps. So at the end of the day, this bubble is the only thing you're going to control.
I love that. Playing above the line with ownership, accountability, and responsibility. That in itself is a superpower. Thank you so much for telling your story today. We are out of time. We've actually got to go back to work after this, if you can believe it. We got a call coming up in 18 minutes. So,
oh, geez. Hopefully I didn't take too much time, but it was one of those things where I just wanted to add, I am so grateful to be able to share my story, not because it's an easy story to share, but I just want to know that if you're an electrician out there and you feel lost, or you're a neurodivergent like me and you feel alone, I want you to know that my friendship comes free. And I truly want to help you in the worst possible way, because I know I was going down a bad path, and my sales skills is what saved me, and therapy is what saved me. So if I can lend you what knowledge I have, I will gladly do so.
get some good inputs, guys. Have some great outputs. As always, it's Friday, but we are here 5 days a week, helping you simplify your pricing, master your sales, and deliver consistent premium level service. I'm Clay. It's my partner, Joseph. Thanks for joining us and listening today, guys. And please let us know if you relate to this. Feel free to comment on the thread. If you're not a part of our Facebook group, do jump on Facebook and join the Electripreneur Secret Group. And we look forward to seeing you and talking to you there.
Take care.
Bye-bye.